Okay, so
Hey,
we're
David.
getting this morning's class is sponsored by Gary Mizrahi and also by Sally Haber in memory of their mother-in-law, Shafia Batzakia. Today we're going to start a new topic, which actually, as an extended topic, is actually the last piece that we're going to do in the laws of Shabbat. So we're actually getting close to the end of the book. We're on page 375. So we've been doing this topic, the topic of Shabbat in general, for quite some time. This is actually like our 60th Zoom video shiur, and we had about 100 and something of the audio shiurim beforehand. So, one day we have this sheet that people could go back to, but we went through a lot of the different laws of Shabbat, and we have it all recorded. So, Baruch Hashem, people should be able to use that at some point. Anyway, the topic that we're going to start now is, as I said, the last topic in the laws of Shabbat that we're going to discuss, and that is the laws of someone who is ill, the laws of what we call Holeh. Holeh is someone that's ill, and we're going to see that expands to a number of different ideas. We're also going to talk about a woman giving birth, not exactly ill. We're going to talk about how we deal with children, they're not exactly ill, but all of those fit into the category. So to a certain degree, you might say these are special cases that we need to take care of somebody, and since we need to take care of somebody, might or might not the law be different on Shabbat? That's going to be the question that we basically deal with, and we're going to break it into four categories, right? The ill, the severely ill, or maybe what we might call the life-threatening ill, and then we'll talk about the pregnant birthing woman, and then we'll talk about children. Those are the four topics that basically the way the book breaks it up. So the first topic, which is actually the longest in length, just because it's the first and it's going to deal with a few basic principles, is what we call Holeh she'en bo sakana. Holeh she'en bo sakana, which means ill, but there's no danger. So now when we say danger, of course, what are we talking about? We're talking about danger, but danger means danger of death, right? So we're talking about someone who's ill, but we're not afraid the person's going to die, right? So there's something physically, medically wrong, needs some kind of treatment, needs some kind of change, needs some kind of addressing, but we're not concerned that if we don't address it, that the person won't live, right? So if we're so that's the key thing to remember, is that everything we're talking about now is we're not discussing where it's life-threatening. If it's life-threatening, that's the next topic, which we're not going to get to for probably a week or so. And if we're talking life-threatening, so I think everyone knows a little bit already ahead of time, I'm not giving away any secrets here, that life-threatening, we do whatever it takes, right? But we're going to leave the life-threatening. We're not going to talk about that until after. It's interesting that that's the order that he places it, but it's fine. And we're going to talk about the non-life-threatening situations. Now, even within the non-life-threatening situations, there's a lot of gradations. There's a lot of possibilities, right? Not every situation is life-threatening. And there's lots of different types of non-threatening, non-life-threatening issues. And so we're going to go through it, and it's sort of organized, but maybe not entirely organized. But we'll go through the book and as he presents it, and we'll talk about it, and hopefully by the end, we'll be able to create our own basic understanding and our own parameters of what we do. So all that was just a little bit of an introduction to be prepared for what we're going to be doing. Okay. Holeh she'en bo sakana, osim lo kol tzrachav al yedei goy. He says, listen, if you have an ill person who is categorized as en bo sakana, he's not life-threatening, whatever he needs you could do, provided you do it by a non-Jew. If you have a non-Jew, the non-Jew could do everything for this Holeh she'en bo sakana. Ketzad, so for example, omrim lagoy lasot lo v'hu oseh. You tell the goy, could you turn on the light for me? And he could turn on the light. Levashel lo, cook something for me. La'afot, bake something for me. B'chayotze ba'elu. Aval en machalina alav et haShabbat b'isurei Torah, afilu im kayemet etzlo sakanat ever. He says, but what are we saying? When a goy does something, it's because it automatically becomes not asur from the Torah, right? For the goy to do melacha, as we learned a while back, once it's the goy doing it, it's midrabanan. So the Jew is not there's no Torah law that we're violating. He says for Holeh she'en bo sakana, someone who's ill but he's not in danger of dying, we don't violate a Torah law, right? We won't light a fire. So I won't light a fire. I won't turn on a light for this person because he's not dying. He says, and this is true even if there's what we call sakanat ever. Sakanat ever means the person has danger of losing a limb, not sakanat hayim, right? So we're going to go into this sakanat ever concept, but basically it means if the person would lose his pinky, right? The person would lose his finger. The person would lose his arm, but that's it, right? Then we don't violate a Torah law. We have a non-Jew do it, or some other way that we don't violate a Torah law. Now, one of the thoughts that you may be thinking a number of things when you hear that, right? But one of the thoughts that you may be thinking is, hey, wait a second. If you're telling me I'm losing a finger, an arm, that already sounds pretty life-threatening, right? Doesn't that, like if you're talking about that, how do you know that's not life-threatening? So it would have to be a situation where you would know that. But if there was a situation where it's limb-threatening, and how do you contain limb-threatening, and it's potentially life-threatening, then obviously that's life-threatening. So it would be only where we knew for sure that it's not life-threatening that we'd be talking about this. Okay, but limb-threatening already, I think everyone understands that's a pretty extreme and serious issue. And if we're talking about cutting people's arms off and stuff like that, I think be sure, be 1,000% sure. Hopefully, we don't get into that situation. But we're talking about less than that, right? And less than that, there's plenty of less than that, right? There's plenty of things that can be that's less than that, and we'll get into all different types of examples. So hold off on what are examples of that, but that's what we want to be talking about. But the basic parameters are: is this life-threatening? Is this limb-threatening, right? And is the law that we need to break a deoraita law or a derabanan law? If it's a deoraita law, let the goy do it, right? And then it's a derabanan law, and then it's okay. If it's a derabanan law, then it's okay to do it for the ill person. And even better, again, if you let a non-Jew do it, because for a non-life-threatening person, what we would pretty much always say is better to let the non-Jew take care of it, because it lessens the legality problem of a deoraita. Okay, next halacha. אם הרופא אומר שאם לא ירפאו את העבר, עלול המצב להגיע לפיקוח נפש, הרי דינו כדין חולה שיש בו סכנה. Right, so he's basically saying what I was saying before, which is if the doctor says if you don't heal this limb, then you don't know that it can't get to a life-threatening situation, so then that person is in a life-threatening situation. ובזמננו אומרים הרופאים שכמעט אין סכנת עבר שלא כרוך בזה גם סכנת כל הגוף על ידי הרעלה וכדומה. So he says today doctors say that any kind of limb-threatening item is life-threatening. And therefore, if there's really any limb threatened here, so go take care of it. Don't look for a goy. Don't do drabanan. Limb-threatening today is life-threatening. We know the hip bone is connected to the thigh bone, and the thigh bone is connected to the knee bone. As the song goes. So today, the human body, we're pretty clear that if you're not taking care of, if you're talking about losing a limb, so you're worried about infections and other problems that we know could be impacting the whole body. And so therefore, you take care of what you need to take care of. But I'm just going through the legal terms. So because what we do see from here, even if practically it's not going to come into play, what we do see from here is we're talking about Shabbat, and we don't kid around about Shabbat. Shabbat is important. Shabbat is not a small area of halacha. So if it's life-threatening, it's life-threatening. But if it's not life-threatening, so we have to keep that in mind. So perhaps we're going to be a little more inclusive in terms of what, or broad about what life-threatening is, and then that allows us to do certain things, but we should understand from a legal standpoint, it would have to be life-threatening for us to violate Shabbat in a serious way. Okay. Holeh sheyesh lo ke'evim chazakim. A person who's ill that has very severe pains. The whole gufo chala al yedei zeh, and his whole body is sick, weak as a result of this. Or shenafal mishkav, or he's bedridden. He can't get out of bed. He can't get off the couch. He can't move. Af she'en bo sakana, even though he's not in danger of his life. Mutar la'asot b'shvilo refuah she'en ba melacha. I can do for him things as long as it's not a melacha, as long as it's not something asur from the Torah. Umutar lo lakachat terufot, and therefore he's able to take pills, kigon glulot, or syrup, tipot, eye drops, or other, medicinal things. He's allowed to do that. Umutar la'arvev meh chamtzan b'mayim kedei legarger bahem. He can mix vinegar or salt water. He can do certain things that potentially you can't do otherwise on Shabbat. He could do that because he's so sick. He's not dying, right? But he's got a, I would say here, he's got like a migraine, right? Or he had a surgery yesterday and he's recovering from that surgery or something like that. And in those situations, the person is not dying, but he's in a lot of pain. So what do we say? You could do the Dirabanan, right? And the Dirabanan includes things like taking pills. We're going to talk about why pills would even be a Dirabanan. We're going to get to that. Okay, any questions to this point or no? Just want to stop here for a sec. Anyone? No.
Good.
Okay, good.
No,
yeah, go ahead. Go. Question. Okay. Holeh she'en bo sakana. Someone who's sick and he's not life-threatening, is not going to die. Af ki mutar lo lakachat terufot, even though he's allowed to take pills and medicine. Im kol zeh asur lo lakachat kol terufa acheret shu zakuk la b'shel mechush acher asher yesh lo kegon hasovel mishafat lo yikach glula largat ke'ev kal haba lo ma'ashinayim. So he says like this. Let's say the guy is really sick, right? Not dying, but sick. He's got a 101 fever, right? Like a 101 fever, you're not dying, but you can't move, right? You're sick, right? So he says, so you could take the aspirin, the Tylenol, the Advil, right? You could take that, right, so that your fever goes down. He says, but let's say that guy also has a toothache, right? The toothache, it bothers you, but it's nothing, right? It's a toothache. Right, you could deal with it till tomorrow. Till tomorrow. There's no, it's a toothache. It's a nuisance. It's annoying, but you don't need to lie down. It's not what we would call debilitating in any way. You can't take what you need for the toothache, right? Because as we're going to see, there's rules about medicine that if it's not enough to knock you out, right? Meaning if the illness is not enough to lay you out in bed, then you can't take the medicine. So that's going to be the next thing that we're going to say. Mi sheyesh lo ke'evim halashim, someone who has what we call weak pains, light pains. But he's basically walking around like a healthy person. Asur la'asot lo shum refuah. For him, you can't do any healing. And this is an interesting law. It's a gezerah. It's a rabbinical decree. Shemei yisahek samamanim. Perhaps the people are going to come and grind the medicine. And so he's therefore not allowed to take medicine. So what are we talking about? So you may remember that one of the 39 melachot involves grinding, right? Taking the wheat, the grains, and with a mortar and pestle or with a heavy board and crushing it and turning it into a flour, right? Flour meaning like F-L-O-U-R, right? Like flour used for baking for bread. So that's a melacha from the Torah that you're not allowed to do. So the Chachamim saw that medicine basically involves grinding things very often, and not usually that you need to do today. You could grind it the day before, right? In fact, the pharmacy, right? What's the symbol for the pharmacy is the mortar and pestle. The grinding of these different herbs or spices or grains and using them for medicine. So the Chachamim didn't want us doing that on Shabbat. So because it's a melacha, right? They don't want you to be grinding on Shabbat. So what did they say? They said, we're going to make a blanket rule that unless someone is dying or the person is laid out and they can't move, right? Meaning laid out on the couch or laid out on the bed and they can't move. If it's less than that threshold, we don't want you grinding. And since we don't want you grinding, we're going to make a rule. You can't take medicine because medicine basically leads to grinding. Or often leads to grinding. It doesn't always, but it often does. So therefore, they ruled out all medicines. So this is a major rule, right? Which basically says that if I have a light headache, I cannot take an Advil. I cannot take an aspirin, a Tylenol, or someone. I can only do so if it's a severe enough headache that I have to lie down. So that's a major rule. That's a very
Rabbi.
Yes.
What about a cream like Bengay for muscle ache or for eczema?
It's going to be the same story, which is if it's not debilitating and it's medicinal, and we're going to go into examples. There's a lot here, and I don't want to give everything away here, but the basic rule is if it's medicinal, and you're not in a situation where you're laid out, then we say you can't do it. That's the basic rule. So what ends up being is you kind of have like three categories, right? You have the life-threatening, right? What do we say about life-threatening? Whatever it takes, right? You do whatever you have to do in the life-threatening situations. In the not life-threatening, but severe enough that you'd be laid out, right? You'd be what we would call bedridden. There, you can violate rabbinical laws, but not Torah laws, which is why you can ask a goy to do anything, because once the goy is doing it, it's rabbinical. But even if there's no goy, there's plenty of rabbinical things that we know are forbidden, only rabbinical purposes, and so those would be allowed, right? So like all the laws of muktzeh that we talked about, if I do it in a backhanded sort of way, we talked about a lot of different rabbinical laws. You'd have to go back and know which law is rabbinical, which law is Torah law. But if it's a rabbinical law, so you would be able to use for this person, the person who's not dying but bedridden. Now there's a third category, which is the least and the lowest level category of you're not even bedridden, you just don't feel good. Right? In that instance, the basic rule is, I'm sorry, we can't help you. You can't take medicine because we don't want people coming and grinding spices and grinding things up. And in order for that not happen, the Chachamim made a blanket rule across the board. If you're not bedridden, no medicine, no pills, no stuff like that. We're going to get to, I know there's probably a lot of questions that you're asking. We're going to get to that. But these are the three basic categories and the three basic rulings that we have for each of those categories. Good? Okay. Now, the next case, which I imagine many of you were already thinking, he says like this: "Mi shitchil lakachat terufot lefi pekudat rofer beretzifut b'meshech kama yamim b'shabbat benehem." Okay, so someone began to take medicine according to a doctor, and the way that the medicine works is that you have to take the medicine for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, or whatever it may be, and there's Shabbat in the middle of that, right? So he says like this: "V'yesh chashash she'hafsakat lekichat hatrufot b'Shabbat tigrom lo nezek." He says, and there's a concern that if you stop taking the medicine on Shabbat, it's going to cause you damage, right? In other words, like one of the medicines that really works this way is antibiotics, right? Antibiotics today, which is a major type of medicine that we take. Usually the way that antibiotics work is you have to take a medicine, daily or multiple times daily for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. And if you skip it on a Shabbat, then potentially you're not going to get the medicine the way that it needs to be delivered. And then you're not going to be healed, right? That's exactly what he says here. He says, for example, someone who takes antibiotics, you have to take them many set days. Stopping them could cause damage. It says, Mutar lamshich lakachtan b'Shabbat. If that's the case, then you could take them on Shabbat. So if the doctor tells you, hey, you need to take this for 10 straight days, then you take it, and you take it on Shabbat.
Rabbi, what about, maybe going to get to it, but conditions that are chronic, cholesterol every day?
So we're going to get to that, right? Yeah, but exactly, right? If that's something that has to be taken on those days, then that's what you have to do, right? Cholesterol, right? Cholesterol, even if maybe right today, if I don't take the medicine, I'm not dying, right? But if I have a medicinal thing that keeps first of all, sometimes not taking the cholesterol things even for a day already could put you in a dangerous spot. But if not having it in the regulation that it needs to be had creates problems, then for sure you can take the medicine because you're basically in the category of it's dangerous. So you have to.
And Rabbi, vitamins, I forgot, you did that.
I'm going to get to vitamins. I didn't get to vitamins yet. ויש מכירים בכל התרופות שהתחיל לקחת לפני שבת, אם יפסיק לקחת יבוא לידי מכאובים שיוצאים מגדר מחושים בלבד או שיסתער מזה. He says, and this is true, he says, people are pretty lenient on this. He says, if today we have a lot of medicines that work this way, you know, the pharmacist gives you X number of pills, X number of days. He says, more or less, today, if you get a prescription to take medicine on a regular basis, take the regular prescribed medicine. Even though some people will say things like, well, you know, if I have to take it once daily, okay, let me take it Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and then Saturday I'll take it on Saturday night at at 8, 9 o'clock. You know, if I could do that, then I should. If that doesn't somehow impact things, but there's plenty of things that don't work that way, right? There's plenty of pills that you have to take multiple times a day. You need to take in the morning, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna get into a lot of examples. But what I'll say is the basic rule is, if you're on a prescription, if you're on a regulation, if you're on the doctor said you should take this regularly. So today we more or less say go for it. We more or less say take it at the time that you're supposed to take it, even though we just said that if you're not bedridden, you don't take pills, you don't take medicine. That's generally the way that practically it applies today, is for one-time things. But for things that are ongoing and regular, so there we would say take the medicine. Okay. So you asked about vitamins. So here he goes. This is the next question. He says, "Mi shiragil leishtamesh bechol yom b'vitaminim ketachlif lemazon mesuyam." He says someone who takes vitamins kind of in place for some kind of food or nutrition or something like that. Or maybe he's taking it as a food supplement so that he doesn't gain weight. Or there's something that he's low in iron or zinc or something like that. And he just wants to be healthy as a result of taking it. You could take vitamins on Shabbat as well. So basically, we'll say that vitamins are allowed. So vitamins, which the way that we take vitamins is to keep ourselves healthy, right? For nutritional purposes and for whatever deficiencies we naturally have. So in those instances as well, we allow ourselves to take those what we'll call medicines, those vitamins, and they're allowed. So there's a lot more to go, and we'll touch upon, we'll get into a lot of stuff next week. But just to review quickly today, life-threatening, pull out all the stops. Everyone, we do whatever we can to save the person. Non-life-threatening, so if the person's bedridden, as long as it's not from the Torah, you could violate it. If the person is bedridden. If the person is not bedridden, so we're going to say, really, you shouldn't do that. However, on things that are regular items, like antibiotics, like vitamins, so we're saying that you can do that. So what it ends up being is, if you have a mild headache, if you have a mild toothache, those are the areas where we don't take medicines, but in most of the other situations, we would. Anyway, that's where we're going to stop today. This class, again, was in memory of Shapia Zapat Zakia by Gary Mizrahi and Sally Haber. We thank them for the sponsorship. And I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.